Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to close your eyes for a second. Well, don't close your eyes if you're driving. Please keep them on the road. But if you're safe, picture this. You are standing on a massive slab of asphalt. It is, I don't know, 100 degrees out. The humidity is about 90%. You're wearing a uniform made of this material that seems scientifically designed to just trap heat against your skin. Sweat is literally running down your back in a river.
Sounds like a typical Tuesday in July at Fort Moore, or at Paris Island, or pretty much any basic training post.
Exactly. And you are standing there, completely still, alongside maybe 200 other people. Your heels are touching. Your feet are at a perfect 45-degree angle. Your thumbs are pinned to the seam of your trousers. And you wait. You just wait for a voice. And then suddenly, that voice cracks through the air like a whip. And in the exact same millisecond, 200 heels strike the pavement. Crack. Sounds like a gunshot. Looks like a machine.
It's a visceral experience. I mean, if you've ever been part of it, or even just watched it up close, you feel that sound in your chest. It's powerful.
It is undeniably powerful. It looks perfect. It looks professional. But here is the question that I think nags at a lot of people, maybe even people inside the formation. You go home, you peel off that sweaty uniform, you nurse your sore feet, and you think, okay, that looked cool, but is it real?
Is it real work?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just theater? Is it just for show?
Right. Is this just performance art? Is it just nostalgia? Because let's be honest, modern warfare isn't fought in straight lines anymore. We aren't musketeers standing in a field waiting to volley fire. We have drones. We have cyber warfare. We have special operators working in these small, decentralized teams. So does learning how to pivot on your heel in perfect synchronization actually help you survive a firefight in the 21st century?
That right there is the defining question of the document we are looking at today. And the common perception, the hot take, if you will, is that drill is a relic. It's something we keep around for parades, for funerals, maybe for the Super Bowl halftime show. It's the shiny hood ornament on the car, but it's not the engine.
But today, we are pivoting hard away from that idea. We are diving into a document that says, essentially, you are completely wrong. We're looking at a white paper titled Drill and Ceremonies as an Enduring Training System by John K. Marshall. Now, this author is known in the community as the Drill Master. And I have to say, when I first saw that name, I thought, okay, is this going to be a nostalgic rant about how things used to be better in the old days?
And that is exactly what it is not. And that's why we're talking about it. This isn't some blog post. This is a memorandum written for the absolute highest levels of institutional leadership. We're talking headquarters, command staff, training command. Marshall isn't writing this to reminisce. He's writing a policy-grade analysis.
He's bringing the data. He's bringing the receipts.
He is. And his core argument is so counterintuitive. He argues that drill is not performance art. It is a sophisticated, systems-based training methodology designed to produce two very specific things, lethality and cohesion.
Lethality. That is a heavy word. We usually associate lethality with marksmanship or calling in airstrikes or, close quarters combat, not with marching.
Exactly. But Marshall connects the dots. He argues that drill is a training multiplier, and his warning is stark. He suggests that the degradation of drill standards, which he documents pretty effectively, is not just an aesthetic problem. It's not just that the parades look a bit sloppy. It links directly to a loss of professional identity and a loss of discipline in the modern military.
So if you think drill is just about looking pretty, you are missing the point entirely. According to this source, we are talking about the operating system of the military mind. Our mission today is to unpack this argument. We're going to look at what drill actually is, mechanically and psychologically. We're going to look at why we do it, how the standards have eroded, and maybe what the solution is.
And we really need to start by clearing the deck on definitions, because drill is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but I don't think most people, even some people in uniform, could give you the technical definition.
Right. Segment 1, defining the terms. If I ask a random person on the street, what is drill? They'll say, it's marching, or maybe it's walking in step. But Marshall gives us a much more rigorous, a much more clinical definition.
He does. And this definition is really the anchor for the whole paper. He defines drill as trained, patterned behavior performed by individuals and units under command.
Trained, patterned behavior. Let's stop there for a second. That sounds, well, it sounds almost like something you'd read in a psychology textbook, or maybe a manual on dog training,
It's supposed to be clinical, because he's trying to strip away the emotion and just get to the mechanics. Marshall highlights three key elements there: intention, repetition, and standardization. It's not just walking together. Like you said, a group of friends walking to a bar is walking together. That's not drill. Drill is a deliberate programming of movement. You are intentionally stripping away the individual's choice of how to move, how fast, which foot, what to do with your hands, and replacing it with a single non-negotiable standard.
And the key phrase there, the one that makes it all work, is under command.
That is the linchpin. That's everything. Marshall offers a key insight here, and if you take one thing away from this first part, it's this. Drill is fundamentally about predictability under command.
Predictability. Now, usually when we talk about war or high-stakes environments, we talk about the opposite. We talk about chaos, the fog of war.
Exactly. And what is the antidote to chaos? It's predictability. It's order. If I am a commander on a battlefield or even just a platoon sergeant in a training environment and I give an order, I cannot afford to wonder how you are going to interpret it. I cannot afford to wonder if you're going to move left or right or hesitate for a second. I need to know with 100% mathematical certainty that when I say go, the entire unit moves as one single organism.
So you're essentially creating a shortcut in the brain. You're bypassing the conscious decision-making part of the mind. You hear the command, and the body moves before you even have a chance to debate it or ask why.
Precisely. You're building an instinct. And let's dig into the mechanism of that for a second because the paper alludes to this. Think about how a drill command works. It's not just one word. There are two parts, the preparatory command and the command of execution.
Okay, break that down for us.
So the command isn't just march. The command is forward, march. The forward part is the preparatory command. It tells your brain what is about to happen. It loads the program. It puts the action in the chamber. Then there's a pause, a literal prescribed silence. In that silence, every single person in the formation is suspended in the state of hyper-anticipation. Their muscles are tense. They're ready. Then comes march, the command of execution. And everyone triggers at the exact same instant.
That pause is so interesting. It's like the breath before the plunge. It creates tension.
It creates a neural link between the voice of the leader and the action of the follower. You are training the brain to hyper-focus on the leader's voice, to listen for that one specific sound that will trigger the action. That is a tactical asset. If you can focus on a voice on a quiet parade field, you have a much better chance of focusing on that same leader's voice when artillery is exploding around you and everyone is screaming.
That makes a lot of sense. It's attention training, really. Now, Marshall breaks this down further into a taxonomy because not all drill is the same. And I think this is where the public and maybe even some pundits get confused.
Oh, absolutely. They lump it all together. They see a funeral detail and they see a silent drill team, and they think it's all the same thing. But Marshall distinguishes between three distinct types. First, and most importantly, you have regulation drill.
This is the meat and potatoes, the basics.
The absolute baseline, the foundation. These are the standardized movements and commands that you find in the manuals. Right face, present arms, forward march, about face, all that stuff. Marshall emphasizes this point again and again. Regulation drill is not optional. It's the foundation of authority. It is a grammar of the language of command. If you don't know regulation drill, you can't communicate clearly in this environment.
Okay, so that's the standard, the bedrock. Then you have the second type, ceremonial drill.
Right, and this is basically the application of regulation drill to a specific formal event. Think of a funeral, a change of command ceremony, a wreath-laying ceremony at the tomb of the unknown soldier.
This is what we see on TV most of the time, the very solemn, very precise movements.
Usually, yes. The purpose here is representational. It's about rendering honors, upholding tradition, and showing dignity. But, and this is a really critical distinction he makes, ceremonial drill is still governed strictly by the rules of regulation drill. You don't just make up new steps because it's a funeral. You don't get to be creative. You are applying the established standard to a solemn occasion, which is what gives it its power. The uniformity is the point.
And then there's the third category, the one that goes viral on TikTok, exhibition drill.
Ah, yes, the fancy stuff, the cool stuff.
This is the spinning rifles, the blindfolded catches, the intricate formations that look like a human kaleidoscope. Now, I have to play devil's advocate here for a minute. When I see exhibition drill, it looks incredibly impressive, sure. But it also looks a little bit like baton twirling. It looks like a circus act. How does spinning a 9-pound rifle over your head help you be a better soldier?
That is a fair question, and Marshall addresses it with a really crucial nuance. He argues that even in exhibition drill, creativity does not negate authority.
Meaning, what does that mean in practice?
Meaning that you aren't just freestyling. You aren't just doing whatever looks cool. Exhibition drill must exist within defined constraints and doctrine. Think about the rifle itself. It weighs about 9 pounds, it has sharp edges, a bayonet lug, a charging handle. It has a specific center of gravity. To spin that weapon, to throw it, to catch it, and to remain in perfect step with a team of 16 other people requires a mastery of the weapon's physical characteristics that is completely off the charts. You have to know that tool intimately.
So it's not just a trick, it's a demonstration of ultimate control over your equipment.
Exactly. Marshall says it is for demonstration, not doctrinal innovation.
Mm-hmm.
You aren't rewriting the manual, you are showing that you have mastered the manual so thoroughly that you can perform within its rules artistically. It's like a jazz musician. You can only improvise effectively if you have mastered the scales, the chords, the theory. If you don't know the scales, you're just making noise.
That's a great analogy. So regulation drill is the scales, ceremonial drill is playing a classical piece, and exhibition drill is the jazz solo.
Precisely. And all of this, he points out, falls under the broad umbrella of close order drill. Whether you are marching or standing still, armed with a rifle or a flag or a sword, or completely unarmed. Marshall's big takeaway is that these aren't separate disciplines. You don't have discipline class over here and marching class over there. They are all applications of the exact same system of trained, patterned behavior under command.
Okay, so we know what it is. It's a system of programmed obedience and coordination, but let's get to the why. Segment 2, the functional value. Because Marshall is very, very clear that the primary purpose isn't just to look good for the tourists.
No, not at all. And he starts with the most utilitarian, the most frankly boring reason possible: physics.
Physics. How does physics get into this?
Well, the primary purpose of drill is the efficient, coordinated movement of groups from point A to point B under command.
Which sounds incredibly simple. But have you ever tried to move 200 people through a single doorway without a plan?
It's a herd of cats. It's a complete disaster. It's a mosh pit. People bump into each other. They stop. They start. They get bottlenecked. It's wildly inefficient. Drill solves the basic physics problem of moving mass in an orderly fashion. But that's just the logistics. The deeper value, the one that Marshall really gets excited about, is what he calls the human system.
The human system. Let's unpack that phrase. It sounds important.
It is. He argues the drill is the single most effective tool for accelerating the transition from civilian autonomy to collective responsibility.
Civilian autonomy. I like that phrase. It sounds like a very polite way of saying, I do what I want when I want.
That is exactly what it is. And there's nothing wrong with it. In the civilian world, you are autonomous. You choose your walking pace. You choose your direction. If you see something interesting in a shop window, you stop. If you're tired, you slow down. That is your right as an individual. But in a military unit, that autonomy can be fatal.
How so? Give me a concrete scenario.
Okay, imagine a unit moving under fire, trying to get from one piece of cover to the next. Or even something less dramatic, just moving on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier at night. It's dark, it's loud, there are jets moving around. If one person decides to exercise their civilian autonomy and stop walking because they dropped something, or wander off to the left because they thought they saw something, the entire formation is compromised. People behind them trip. The unit breaks apart. On a flight deck, you might walk into a spinning propeller or literally off the edge of the ship.
So drill is deprogramming that individualistic instinct.
It creates a new instinct. It conditions individuals to subordinate their personal preference, their personal comfort, their personal curiosity to the function of the unit. Marshall argues this rewiring of the human system happens not through PowerPoint slides or lectures, but through physical repetitive movement.
Yeah.
You physically have to match your step to the person in front of you. You have to regulate your stride. You have to stop when the command says stop, even if your personal momentum wants to carry you forward.
It's impulse control on a massive scale.
Exactly. And that leads to a whole host of tangible outcomes. Marshall lists them out very clearly. Improved motor control and coordination. You learn how your body moves in space. Physical fitness and endurance. Standing at attention for an hour is hard work. And this is a big one he emphasizes: safety.
Safety. That seems counterintuitive. People think of drill as just marching around.
Well, we touched on the flight deck example, but think about handling weapons. Drill teaches muzzle awareness. When you are doing the manual of arms, moving the rifle from your shoulder to port arms to inspection arms, you are constantly obsessively aware of where that barrel is pointing. You're drilling safety habits into the muscle memory so that you don't even have to think about it in a high-stress situation.
And then there's the leadership aspect. Marshall talks about the command voice.
This is huge for young leaders, for junior NCOs and new lieutenants. Standing in front of a formation of people, even just 10 people, and giving a command is terrifying the first time you do it. You have to project your voice from your diaphragm. You have to sound confident. Even if you're shaking on the inside, you have to sound like you mean it.
It's public speaking, but with immediate, visible consequences. If you mumble, 200 people look at you confused, or they all do different things.
Or worse, they do the wrong thing, and you look incompetent, and you've lost their confidence. Drill provides this controlled laboratory where young NCOs and officers can find that command voice. They learn the crucial difference between yelling, which is just emotional noise, and commanding, which is authoritative. There is a distinct difference in the tone and the cadence.
And then we get to the intangible outcomes, the cultural stuff. Marshall talks about esprit de corps, but he frames it in a very practical way.
He does. He calls discipline a practiced behavior. That is such a key phrase. Marshall argues that discipline isn't a personality trait. You aren't just born disciplined or undisciplined. It's a muscle. You have to exercise it day in and day out. Drill is the gym where you exercise the discipline muscle.
It's the attention to detail, right? I mean, if you're focused on whether your thumb is perfectly aligned with the seam of your trousers, or if your belt buckle is perfectly centered with your shirt opening, that seems incredibly petty to an outsider.
It seems petty, yes. Trivial, even. But the logic is, if you can't be trusted to align your own belt buckle, why should I trust you to align the sights on a weapon? Or align the coordinates for an airstrike? Or check the pressure on a hydraulic line on a helicopter?
It's the broken windows theory of military training.
Precisely. That's a perfect way to put it. If you let the small, seemingly insignificant details slide, the big, mission-critical details eventually follow. Marshall argues that these intangibles, discipline, attention to detail, collective identity, are incredibly hard to replicate through informal or ad hoc training methods. You can't just give a class and say, okay, everyone have attention to detail now. You have to make them do it over and over and over again until it hurts, until it becomes second nature.
So we have this system. It creates predictability, it builds safety, it forges the command voice, it trains discipline as a behavior. It seems like a no-brainer. But the central tension of this entire white paper is that this system is breaking down. Segment 3, the decline. Marshall argues that standards have eroded significantly. And he doesn't just say kids these days are lazy or anything like that. He points to specific structural bureaucratic changes.
This is the real investigative heart of the paper. And it starts with something that sounds incredibly boring but is actually devastating. Authority classification.
Okay, navigate us through the bureaucracy here. Why does the classification of a government document matter so much?
Because in the military, the document type dictates the legal weight of the instruction. It's not just a suggestion. Historically, drill guidance was found in manuals and regulations.
And regulation means law, basically.
Essentially, yes. If a soldier violates a regulation, they can be punished under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the UCMJ. It is mandatory. It is enforceable. A commander must follow a regulation. There is no wiggle room.
Okay, that's clear. Mandatory.
But Marshall traces this bureaucratic drift over the years where drill guidance was slowly moved out of regulations and into circulars and pamphlets.
Pamphlet? That sounds like something you pick up at a dentist's office. How to floss correctly. It doesn't sound very authoritative.
That's the connotation. And it's intentional. A circular or a pamphlet is, by definition, advisory. It's informational.
Yeah.
It suggests best practices. It basically says, hey, here's a good way to do this if you want to, if you have time.
And what happens when you tell a busy commander who has a million things to do that something is advisory?
It dies.
Yeah.
It goes to the bottom of the pile, and the bottom of the pile never gets looked at. This is the command climate issue. Commanders are completely overwhelmed. They have mandatory training requirements for everything: cybersecurity, sexual harassment prevention, vehicle maintenance, combat drills, you name it. If one document says drill is advisory and the other 10 documents say this other training is mandatory, guess which one gets done?
The mandatory one, every single time.
Every time. So by changing the classification of the document, the institution implicitly, whether they meant to or not, told the entire force, this doesn't really matter anymore. And that leads directly to what Marshall calls discretion without expertise.
That is a stinging phrase. Discretion without expertise. Ouch.
It is. Modern guidance often encourages leaders to use good judgment to adapt drill to their specific needs or situation. Which sounds great in theory. We want smart thinking leaders, not robots. But Marshall argues that discretion requires deep expertise. You can only break the rules effectively if you have completely mastered the rules.
It's the jazz musician again. If I don't know how to play the trumpet and you tell me to use my discretion to play a solo, it's just going to be a bunch of noise.
Exactly. It's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
But because we stopped mandating drill, the training pipelines, the NCO academies, the officer schools, They all reduced the emphasis on it. So now you have generations of NCOs and officers who don't know the regulations inside and out. They never got that deep training. So when they were told to use their discretion, they aren't adapting from a position of knowledge. They are just guessing.
So you get guesswork mistaken for judgment.
Yes, that's his phrase. And it's brutal but accurate. And the result is variance. Total inconsistency. Every unit does it differently. You go to a joint base ceremony and you see the Army, Navy, and Air Force units executing a simple command like about face, 3 completely different ways. They look sloppy, it's unprofessional, and Marshall argues that this lack of consistency is a sign of a deeper rot.
And this connects to the third factor he identifies in the decline, mission absolutism.
This is the big cultural shift. This is really the post-9/11 mindset taking root.
Right. For 20 years, the military was deploying constantly to Iraq, to Afghanistan. The operational tempo was insane.
And in that kind of high-stakes, high-speed environment, a certain mindset took hold. If it doesn't directly contribute to the fight tonight, we don't have time for it.
You're here to hunt terrorists, not to march around on a parade deck.
Exactly. And honestly, you can sympathize with that view. I get it. If I'm a commander and I have limited time before my unit deploys, I want my guys on the shooting range, not the parade deck. It seems logical. But Marshall calls this a dangerous fallacy. He says mission absolutism causes the institution to consume its own infrastructure.
Consuming its own infrastructure, that's a powerful image. It's like burning the furniture in your house to keep warm.
It's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
You get heat for a little while, but eventually you have nowhere to sit, and then the house itself starts to fall apart.
Yeah.
Marshall argues that by cutting foundational training like drill to save time for the immediate mission, you are actually eroding the very discipline required to execute that mission successfully and safely. You are skipping the stretching and the cardio just to play the game. Eventually, the team starts pulling muscles and getting injured.
So naturally, there are people who push back against this. I mean, I'm listening to this, and part of me is still thinking, okay, but come on. War has changed so much. Segment 4. Debunking the counter-arguments. Marshall knows the critics are out there, and he addresses their arguments head-on.
He does. He's very systematic about it. And first, he tackles the appeal to tradition.
The classic, we do it because we've always done it.
And Marshall explicitly rejects this argument. He says, and this is important, do not keep drill just because of tradition. If your only argument for drill is nostalgia or that's how they did in the old days, you lose, and you deserve to lose. He says we must defend drill based on functional outcomes. Does it work? Does it produce better, more disciplined, more lethal soldiers? If the answer is no, then get rid of it. But he is adamant that the answer is yes.
So he's a pragmatist, not a historian. He's not sentimental about it.
Not at all. Then he takes on the heavy hitter, the one we touched on earlier, the discipline versus lethality false dichotomy.
The idea that time spent on the drill pad is time stolen from warfighting training. An hour marching is an hour you weren't on the rifle range.
And Marshall argues this is a completely false choice. He says discipline is not the opposite of lethality. It is a prerequisite for lethality.
Okay, let me play the skeptic here. Can't I be a lethal soldier, a great sniper, for example, without knowing how to march perfectly? My ability to hit a target at 800 meters doesn't depend on the angle of my feet at the position of attention.
Individually, maybe. You might be a phenomenal marksman. But wars aren't fought by individuals. They are fought by units. Lethality in a modern context requires synchronized, coordinated action under extreme stress. It requires fire and maneuver. It requires suppressing the enemy with your fire so your buddy can move up. That requires absolute trust. It requires perfect timing. It requires instant, unquestioning obedience to the plan. You can't have a team of individuals all doing their own thing.
And drill is the foundational training for that team aspect of lethality.
Exactly. A mob of great snipers who don't listen to orders and can't coordinate their actions is not a military unit. It's an armed gang. And they will get wiped out by a less skilled but highly disciplined force that works together. Marshall argues you cannot have sustainable lethality without the bedrock of discipline that drill instills.
He also identifies a straw man argument that critics use. They paint drill advocates as these obsessives who want to march for 8 hours a day and bring back powdered wigs.
Right. The caricature is, oh, you just want us to go back to the 18th century and ignore modern technology. Marshall corrects this very clearly. He says drill is necessary, but it is not sufficient. He isn't arguing that drill replaces combat training. He's saying it enables it. It makes all other training more effective. He's not asking for half the training day. He's asking for consistent maintenance of the standard, maybe 30, 60 minutes a few times a week, to keep that disciplined muscle toned.
And finally, he addresses the slippery slope argument. Critics might say, oh, come on, so if we stop saluting properly, we're going to lose the next war. That's ridiculous.
And Marshall actually agrees that it's not that dramatic. The sky doesn't fall on Tuesday because you had a sloppy formation on Monday. It's not a sudden catastrophic break. He says it is gradual degradation.
It's the slow leap in the tire. You don't notice it at first.
It's rust. That's the perfect metaphor. You don't see rust happening in real time. You just wake up one day, years later, and the structural beam snaps under pressure. Marshall warns that removing drill causes a slow erosion of standards, a loss of a shared professional language, and diminished authority transmission. It happens over years, over a generation of soldiers, and by the time you notice the major symptoms, it's really, really hard to fix.
Because the NCOs who are supposed to be the ones to fix it don't know the standards themselves anymore.
Exactly. The institutional expertise has evaporated. You've lost the knowledge.
So we've diagnosed the disease. We've
Right.
looked at the symptoms, the rust, the confusion, the lack of uniformity. What is the cure? Segment 5, the solution. Marshall lays out a pretty clear plan for restoration.
He does. And it starts with reframing how we look at the time commitment. He introduces this brilliant concept of the training multiplier.
I love this concept. Explain how drill is a multiplier. It sounds like something from a video game.
It sort of is, in a way. Think about efficiency. In the military, time is the single most precious resource. You never have enough of it. Marshall argues that drill is highly efficient because it trains multiple essential things simultaneously.
Okay, give me the list. What are you getting out of one drill session?
All right, in a single 1-hour drill session, what are you actively doing? 1, you are training authority response listening to and executing commands instantly. 2, you are training physical coordination and motor control. 3, you are training collective discipline and teamwork. 4, you are training the command voice for the leaders giving the commands. 5, you are probably inspecting uniforms and equipment at the same time, so you're training and enforcing appearance standards and attention to detail. And 6, you are building unit cohesion and esprit de corps by moving as one.
That's like 6 different training objectives in one 60-minute block of time.
Exactly. Now, if you tried to train those things separately, a classroom lecture on leadership, a separate class on uniform inspection, a PT session for coordination, it would take you all day. Drill does it all at once. So his argument is, it doesn't steal time from operations. It prepares the human system for operations in the most efficient way possible.
Structurally, though, he wants to fix the paperwork first. Back to the bureaucracy.
Restoring authority. He is absolutely adamant about this. The guidance for drill and ceremonies needs to be moved back to authoritative classifications, manuals, and orders. You have to ensure accountability from the top down. As he puts it, advisory doctrine cannot sustain enforceable standards.
You have to make it mandatory again. You have to take away the option for a commander to just skip it because they're busy.
Right. If you really believe it's important, you have to legislate it. You have to put teeth back into the standard.
And who is going to be the tip of the spear on this? We talked about the NCOs.
The non-commissioned officers, the backbone of the military. But Marshall points out the gap we mentioned earlier. We have stopped teaching them how to teach drill effectively. They don't know what right looks like anymore.
So we need to re-educate the educators.
Yes, a major reinvestment in formal education on the standards. You cannot enforce what you don't know. He calls for a robust effort to get the NCO Corps back up to expert status on the mechanics and the purpose of drill so they can teach it with confidence and authority.
And finally, he closes the solution section with this really interesting distinction between the letter and the spirit of drill.
This is the philosophical capstone of the whole argument, I think. You need the letter. That's the technical stuff. The precise movements, the 45-degree angle of the foot, the snap of the rifle from one position to the next, that is the mechanics of uniformity. But you also need the spirit. That's the why. The pride, the cohesion, the sense of belonging, the professional bearing, the intent behind the movement.
You can't have one without the other, can you?
You can't. Marshall puts it beautifully. Precision without purpose is just mechanical. It's just robots walking around. It's empty. But purpose without precision is vague. It's just a mob with good intentions. It's sloppy. To have a truly professional military, you need the perfect intersection of both. You need the precision of the letter and the pride of the spirit.
That is a powerful place to land. Precision without purpose is mechanical. Purpose without precision is vague.
It really sums up the entire argument for why this matters so much.
So let's zoom out. What does this all mean for us? For you, the listener, Marshall is making this bold assertion that military effectiveness isn't just about technology. It isn't just buying the most expensive jet or the smartest drone. It is built on a foundation of disciplined human systems. And drill, this ancient thing that looks like theater to most people, is actually one of the most efficient and effective mechanisms ever invented for building that human system.
And the final provocation from the source is something that really stuck with me. He asks us to consider that the decline of drill wasn't an accident. It wasn't an operational necessity forced on the military by circumstance. It was a choice.
We chose to prioritize other things. We made a conscious decision.
We chose to downgrade the guidance. We chose to stop training the NCOs properly. We chose to embrace mission absolutism. And we are living with the consequences of that choice, the gradual degradation of the professional standard that he describes.
And for you listening, maybe you aren't in the military. Maybe you run a tech startup, or you manage a restaurant, or you're a teacher, or you work in a nonprofit. Ask yourself this. What is your drill?
That's the question, isn't it?
What are the foundational standards in your organization? The boring stuff, the cleaning the fryer at the end of the night stuff, the commenting your code properly stuff that you've started treating as optional because you're too busy chasing the mission.
What infrastructure are you consuming to get those short-term results? Because as we said, eventually, the house gets cold when you run out of furniture to burn.
And does the mission eventually suffer because you neglected the basics? Because the foundation started to rust? Marshall would say the answer is always, inevitably, yes.
I'd have to agree with him. The basics matter.
Something to think about the next time you see a parade on television. It's more than just a show. It's the sound of a system working. Thanks for diving in with us on this one.
Always a pleasure. It was a great paper.
See you next time.